In the 90s, rollerblading was the fastest growing participation sport. There was loads of excitement around it, movies, TV shows, the X Games. At its peak, there were 29.1 million participants, overshadowing skateboarding with 4.5 million and snowboarding with 3.8 million. It looked like it was on course to dominate extreme sports for years to come, but it was actually skateboarding and snowboarding that went on to mainstream success in the Olympics, while rollerblading was left behind. Now there's many factors that altered its trajectory, and in today's video we're going to have a look at how a homophobic joke not only changed society's view of rollerblading, but also affected attitudes within rollerblading, and how it still rears its ugly head today, almost 30 years later.
What's the hardest thing about rollerblading? Telling your parents you're gay. One little homophobic joke killed that entire fad.
All the stunts are performed by professionals. Do not attempt this yourself. To get the full picture and understand where the joke came from and how it had such an effect, it's back to the 80s. Pac-Man was munching pills, Michael Jordan was named NBA Rookie of the Year, disco was replaced with new wave, leg warmers were in, spandex was bright, hair was big, and inline skating was picking up pace. Momentum started with hockey enthusiasts Scott and Brennan Olsen wanting to do ice hockey training out of season. They discovered the Chicago, an inline skate from the 60s, tinkered about a bit with it, and came up with a modernised solution.
And everything's the same except for the ice surface.
Plus a handy brand name, Rollerblade.
Nice name.
Marketing to hockey players went pretty well, and by '86 the industry was bringing in $7 million. Pretty decent, but there was a bigger market out there. In steps Robert Niagli with his Colgate smile and plan of action. Let's get down to California and target the carefree yuppies. They love a slice of any old trend. And it worked an absolute treat. Inline skating boomed in the second half of the 80s. It was everywhere. Niagli and the boys did so well with rollerblade, everyone started calling inline skating rollerblading.
Rollerblades the creator, not the imitator. With these, homeboy, you're gonna skate greater.
It became synonymous with all the other trends at the time. Any bit of flatland looked like an 80s mobile disco, and some of the inline skating fits seamlessly transitioned from a cruise down the boardwalk to the nightclub. There was lots of bright colours, a fair bit of tight spandex flying about, a drop of neon. It was all fun, happy-go-lucky, but it was a little bit jiving. There was absolutely zero edge. It was more for wealthy yuppies with enormous mobile phones who wanted to be a part of the latest fitness trend, or people who just fancied the dance around.
You know when you gotta blow out some steam, just go and invert it, like, bam!
But the youth had other ideas and wanted to take it in a different direction. People started doing tricks, and when Chris Edwards did the first grind on a rail in 1991, things really kicked off.
Individual, agility, rebel sport at its finest, you know?
A new side of inline skating was trying to make a name for itself, and they wanted nothing to do with the lycra and the dancing of the 80s. They made a very clear point of this by mocking it in 1993 in a video called Dare to Wear, which people cite as one of the first proper skate videos. The ad for it even said, "Burn the spandex, sell the cones." Along with the obvious dig at the past, the video showcased a different lifestyle and attitude than what had been seen before. A whole new skill level was bursting through. It was far more risky and dangerous, and it actually had like a little bit of edge. The same year, Daily Bread magazine started to come out. It became the voice of this new movement and a source of information on this new culture, which was now commercially branded aggressive inline skating. Things continued to go turbo. The 80s provided the platform, while the 90s hoofed it out the park.
Bye, 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 bye.
Hollywood came calling. At the start of the decade you had Prayer for the Rollerboys with Corey Haim and Patricia Arquette. Then there was Airborne, which actually had Chris Edwards as part of it. Hackers with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller. And of course Brink.
When you woke up this morning, did you say to yourself, today I'm gonna talk, or today I'm gonna skate?
Pop Culture Hub, MTV was all over it. There was televised competitions, with the NIS, National Inline Skating Series in 1994 being a particularly pivotal one. The whole event was aired on ESPN and was a huge success. And what many people don't know is that inline skating success here was the driving force behind the X Games. This was all backed up with participation numbers and the revenue being generated. According to National Sporting Goods Association statistics, inline skating had 24 million participants, skateboarding had 4.5 million, snowboarding 3.8. There was no argument, and that year inline skating was pulling in $650 million. Cue the X Games in 1995 to capitalise off inline skating success, bringing skateboarding and BMXing with it.
The Staples Center is going ballistic.
It was another stage for skating to step further away from the neon spandex of the 80s and present itself as this cool, exciting counterculture full of young kids that could make a name for themselves.
Oh my goodness, well over 10 feet high.
During these years, iconic skate videos Mad Beef and The Hoax and Inline Crime were released, which made up the birth of real street skating and propelled Arlo Eisenberg and Brooke Howard-Smith into notoriety. These were followed by Hoax 2, Anarchy Across America, which gave a glimpse into rollerbladers' lifestyle and showed the reach of skating as they met fans touring from city to city. At the same time came one of the most iconic brands in rollerblading, Senate.
Obviously the reason we have the name Senate is because we wanted a name that sounded powerful, but also that was corrupt. And also we wanted the color of money.
The company was started by Arlo and Brooke with the help of Mark Heineken, and they were motivated by their anger towards rollerblade and their poor quality products.
They're not making stuff that can take what we dish out.
They presented themselves as rebellious, leaning into the angry youth appeal, which was captured in their edgy and controversial marketing campaigns. The company's ads often featured evocative images and slogans, and it was this angsty approach that brought them media attention.
But the motto for this company has people saying they've gone too far.
They slipped in a slogan on their clothes that reads, "Destroy all girls."
So here's what all the excitement's about.
They were tapped into exactly what the youth wanted. The more parents and authority hated it, the more kids absolutely loved it, and they continued to feed off that.
When's the last time when your mom said, "Hey, you cannot buy this shirt anymore"? The kid's like, "Yes, Mom, you are right. This is really ridiculous. I don't want this shirt no more." It just doesn't happen.
The brand was shot into the stratosphere. It transcended rollerblading into mainstream culture, and once Bravo got involved with their financial backing, they took Senate to cult-like status. If you walked into school in some Senate gear, everybody knew what you were about. Senate and rollerblading was a symbol of angry youth. They were selling an attitude and a lifestyle, and they were doing well off it.
In 1996-97, we made $13.5 million.
At this point, inline skating was the fastest growing sport with 29.1 million participants. It had everything going for it. Videos, magazines, competition, stars and brands, all telling the youth they can skate fast, jump high, grind this, gap that, be extreme, be aggressive. They were dealing boisterous masculinity to a market absolutely gagging for it. Doing dangerous stuff may be a little stupid, but that was seen as cool. And as a kid in the 90s, that was a measure of success and status. Not everyone was best pleased about this. This was skateboarding's marketing strategy and appeal as well. But they had struggled to get where they were. By the 90s, skateboarding had been through the ringer a fair few times. Its origins can be traced back to the late 40s, 1950s, when surfers in Southern California wanted something for when the surf was flat. It was all very DIY to begin with, and this became ingrained in their culture from the get-go. Early pioneer Bill Richards was one of the first people to attach roller skates to a wooden board. You remember the Chicago skate that inspired the Olsen brothers? It was the same Chicago skate company that supplied Bill with the axle-holding trucks and the wheels. It got big, but crashed out in 1965. It rose again in the 70s, which was popularised in 2005 film Lords of Dogtown.
Yeah, nice, Thierry, nice.
It saw another dip towards the 80s, but this only hardened its core. Becoming underground pushed its DIY roots. It became intertwined with the punk scene and was the calling card of anti-establishment culture. Thrasher was born, and skateboarding developed a really strong sense of style and image, really honing in on what it was authentically all about. A nightmare for parents and corporations, an absolute dream for angsty kids. If developing authentic youth appeal and culture was a group project, skateboarding had put in all the hard graft. Rollerblading kinda came along, signed its name at the bottom and took half the glory.
I'll take that.
Skateboarding didn't see rollerblading as authentic. To them, rollerblading had come from yuppies clad in neon and was gifted its place. The whole hockey thing was kind of forgotten about. Whereas skateboarding came from a DIY mentality with connections to surfing and the punk scene, they were very proud of their roots in their underground culture. So a big part of what had pushed rollerblading into the mainstream had become a target. And as we've seen, rollerblading was already aware of this insecurity.
It's for hardcore skaters, right? Like me.
Then came the joke.
What's the hardest thing about rollerblading? Telling your parents that you're gay. That one little joke. The whole thing went away. I never understood it.
Now that clips Bill Burr reflecting on its effect. Prior to that, you had Aziz Ansari's take on the joke on MTV's Human Giant in 2007.
They say the hardest part of rollerblading is telling your parents you're gay, and I gotta say I found that to be true today.
There's examples of it in chat forums way before this, and although it's hard to source the origins of it, I remember it being thrown around in the 90s, and then from then on, it was just synonymous with rollerblading.
And he's got rollerblades on and just a thong. He's just rollerblading like... And I actually had to stop jogging because I needed my whole body to fucking hate this guy with.
To understand why it had such an impact and why it was even considered an insult in the first place, it needs a little bit more context. The target audience for both aggressive inline skating and skateboarding was primarily teenage boys. At that stage, you're trying to find yourself, maybe a little bit insecure, and high school was a battleground. It was your personal 1066. Among the phrases getting thrown around in the 90s like "talk to the hand" or "your mum" jokes.
Your mother's so fat!
The worst thing you could be called was a
loser. Total posers.
Or lame. And if boys were being particularly vicious, they might call someone a pussy or gay.
Suck your pussy!
It wouldn't be uncommon to hear some boys egging each other on by going, "Do this, don't be a pussy," interchangeable with "do this, don't be gay." It was homophobia under the guise of dismissing someone or something as undesirable, uncool, not tough and not masculine. It doesn't make it acceptable, but that was the mindset for some kids and teenagers in the 90s. Masculinity was proven by doing more dangerous stuff than your friends. Skateboarding and rollerblading were branded as ways to do this. So when the masculinity of that comes into question, that part of the marketing takes a hit. And some would argue that was the whole of aggressive inline skating's marketing. A section of skateboarding lent into the homophobia, infamously seen in Big Brother's magazine issue 69 called The Worst Issue Ever. Editor Dave Carney went hunting for a rollerblader and is seen parodying the crocodile hunter while wrestling Arlo Eisenberg. Arlo sportingly took place in the video and an interview, all aimed to ridicule him and rollerblading. They sold Fruit Booter stickers and t-shirts that intertwined with the gay pride flag and a rollerblade. In an interview with Ski Mag, Dave Carney cringes looking back at what they did. We probably took it too far. We took everything too far. That was the point. As a teenager, it's a lot easier to say what you hate than what you love and what you're about. And I think a lot of skateboarders, it's horrible to say, it wasn't right, but it was homophobia. And that's why everyone called them gay and fruit booters and I don't think it's incorrect to say that skateboarding mocked rollerblading out of existence. Outside of skateboarding, you had songs like Do the Hustle from Guttermouth with lyrics like "You stupid f***it rollerbladers," "Roller Wonderland," "Guzzling fruitcake, I hope you break your hands." Targeting rollerblading became part of American popular culture. In Big Daddy, Adam Sandler's character trips up a rollerblader in Central Park. Former pro skateboarder Rob Dyrdek would show rollerblading bales while screaming on his MTV show.
Oh God! So
There was the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world, just saying no to rollerblading in a national TV advert. No. Even Sex and the City played into the stereotype.
How do you even know he's gay?
I've seen him rollerblading on 8th Avenue.
Oh.
And of course, Jackass. A cultural phenomenon making multiple jokes about rollerblading over the years. Inline skating had become an easy target. People wanted no association with it. Mike Hattrip, the resident extreme skater on skate to ski training videos that Rollerblade produced, became an executive at K2 and recalls a snowboarder standing up in a meeting screaming, "What the fuck are we doing selling inline skates?" Raging that K2 was even in that field. Rollerblading's quick rise to mainstream attention meant it didn't have a deep history or culture it could fall back onto when it was targeted. It was still young, unrefined, even its stars were awkward teens. The best rollerbladers in the videos and magazines look confident and stylish, but that's hard to achieve. It requires controlled body movements. Rollerblading is easy to make look clumsy. You end up looking like you're half steaming, arms flying about the place like you're at some hardcore gig, legs going all over the shop. And that doesn't feel cool. Rollerbladers had been sold this aggressive, tough image, But doing it for the first few times, you feel insecure and a little bit silly.
I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm struggling. I don't know if I can do this, you know. I really don't know if I can do this.
On top of that, you got popular culture making a joke of it and playing off those insecurities. Just to reiterate, it's not a few local skateboarders cracking jokes. It's in movies, songs, adverts and TV. Of course, viewing any of these attributes as bad or indicative of a specific sexual preference is utterly ridiculous. But that's how skate culture in the 90s was framing it. Being tough and taking risks was presented as masculine. Anything outside of that was seen as feminine and homosexual, which is totally bonkers. As a sign of the stigma around gay athletes in sports, it was considered historic when Michael Sam announced he was gay in 2014, making him the first openly gay man to be drafted into the NFL. Within skateboarding specifically, legendary skater Brian Anderson didn't come out publicly until 2016, hiding the fact he was gay for fear it would end his pro career. He was aware skateboarding's history could be traced with homophobia. He remembers hearing homophobic slurs and thinking at a young age it was really dangerous to talk about.
Because I was pretty freaked out, you know what I mean? I was really scared, and people would have perceived it a lot differently, I think, had I said this 15 years ago.
A sad theme across the stories of athletes announcing they are gay is how massive a consideration it was, how they were scared, how they were advised not to, and how a lot of them waited until they left the sport to avoid scrutiny. Leaving the 90s and into the 2000s, rollerblading started to drop and skateboarding started to rise. Skateboarding saw 60% growth between 1999 and 2001. In a role reversal, it became the fastest growing participation sport. While overall participation for rollerblading still had the edge, it was males and the youth where skateboarding took over, age ranges specifically 12 to 17 and 18 to 24. Of course, this is speculative interpretation. There are many reasons why rollerblading dropped and skateboarding rose, but this was the age range and gender both were trying to appeal to, and also those who would be more likely to react to being labelled gay. The youth would be the driving force in any extreme sports, and their presence was an indication of a healthy scene. Brands knew this and started to drop out of rollerblading as the youth moved away, and other extreme sports didn't need much of an excuse to shoo rollerblading out of the X Games, which happened in 2005 and was a huge blow.
Get out of my pub!
Understandably, people left because of the homophobia, because of the jokes, because of the hassle, and some people didn't even start. Of course, people stayed with it as well. But attitudes changed within rollerblading. Rollerblading doubled down on being tough, risky, dangerous, and hyper masculine. And for some people, they took it very serious.
Every picture in the magazine was jump on, slide down. We always made the joke, look at how heterosexual rollerblading is.
Of course, with any extreme sport driven by the youth, there's going to be one-upmanship, there's going to be ego, there's going to be people pushing the boundaries to see where they can go with it. But rollerblading went particularly turbo in this one direction. The jokes weren't just brushed off. It felt like rollerblading was trying to prove a point, as if it agreed to the absurd notion that if it didn't look and feel masculine, if it wasn't dangerous, then it wasn't of value. Anything skateboarding could do, it was going to do bigger and better. The amplitude went off the charts. And of course, rollerblading benefited from some insane footage. 4x4s leading the blind is a stunt fest. It's absolutely mental. Legends were made during this time, and although other styles did exist, aggressive rollerblading had a blinkered focus on hammers. Aggressive rollerblading turned on itself somewhat. Any form of rollerblading that wasn't street skating was seen as embarrassing. Even within aggressive skating, if it wasn't massively death-defying, if it wasn't a massive hammer, it was seen as just supporting skateboarding's claim. You then get a generation of skaters emulating what they see, thinking that's all skating is, or is allowed to be. But how could you become the cool street skater without first being allowed months, maybe even years of being clumsy? Having a narrow range of what was acceptable and promoted in rollerblading wasn't sustainable, especially when there was no financial backing. Just having a skateboard was edgy and cool, but even skateboarding's seen a drop. They expanded beyond the anti-establishment punk attitude marketing to become more commercial, even making it to the Olympics. The hammer's only approach to rollerblading didn't stop the drop-off, and amplitude was being rewarded less and less. But this did positively open things up for a broader focus and approach to rollerblading, and the smaller community became tighter knit.
There really is no other community like the rollerblading community in terms of when we need to come together to support one another, we do it.
Rollerblading has continued to progress, but in far more different directions. There's still remnants of that time period. Anytime a rollerblading video breaks a certain threshold in views, you start to get the comments and the jokes. And that sadly speaks to the long-lasting effect of a homophobic joke and how synonymous it was. Even within rollerblading, you still have people saying, "Where are the hammers?" referring to any other type of skating as tap dancing or effeminate, as if that's a bad thing. People see wizard skating as a threat to aggressive skating and that he's gay. There's certain attitudes in society that will never change. Even making these jokes and claims in the 90s was absolutely absurd. But thankfully, society has moved on a lot since then, and these homophobic internet warriors are seen as dinosaurs that society has left behind. Huge thank you to my Patreons and my channel members. You can join them from as little as £3 a month. Here's a couple of other videos you can watch until I'm back. Spotty dog.